I recently interviewed constitutional expert and attorney Bruce Fein. Bruce graduated from Harvard Law School with honors. He was Associate Attorney General under Ronald Reagan. He's been a professor and lecturer at various law schools. He is also a resident scholar with the Heritage Foundation. Bruce as well has been a consultant for dozens of countries on their constitutions, how to set up their constitutions, how to write them, leading them toward a more democratic government. Bruce is also a columnist for the Washington Times, a very, very adept columnist. He writes on issues concerning the Constitution and our freedoms. And Bruce has a new book coming out in September 2008 entitled Constitutional Peril. Bruce Fein. Madison argues that ambition must counter ambition, especially in terms of political power. Bush obviously has ambition, George Bush. So isn't he doing naturally what he should be doing, exercising ambition? But the problem is that Congress is not exercising that counter-ambition that Madison thought was so important to balance in government. So isn't the institutional crisis bigger than George Bush?
Well, yes, it is. And certainly the Founding Fathers thought ambition needed to be made to counter ambition. But we shouldn't ignore the fact that they also understood that a Republican form of government requires a certain sense of self-restraint and civic responsibility more than any other form. And the Founding Fathers did not expect that simply because you were president, you would try to usurp and overreach at every turn. Perhaps, for example, attempting a military coup, and then it was up to Congress to decide to impeach you. So I don't think it's totally exculpatory of President Bush simply that Congress has played an effete role, and really the institutional weakness of Congress is what enabled the executive branch powers to balloon. I do think the Founding Fathers would have been incredulous that Congress would have been so willing to surrender its institutional authority. Part of that is due to the very acute partisanship in Congress, whereby the Republicans and the Democrats will not hang together with regard to the authority of Congress in general. They will sell out their own institution in order to aid whoever is in the White House.
And the Constitution.
And the Constitution.
Sell out the Constitution. So, but we go back, one thing I want to emphasize here. You give the president an inch, he'll take a mile. I mean, they give the president a mile, now he's taking 2 miles and 3 miles. So is the basic problem with George Bush is usually the target, isn't the basic problem with Congress holding the president accountable? I mean, people have talked about impeachment. Nancy Pelosi, when she came to power, said impeachment's off the table. Should impeachment ever be off the table?
Of course not. That just emboldens the president to become more and more of a usurper. But I do think the crux of your question and assumption is correct. That is, nothing in the Constitution has weakened the instruments that Congress can wield to rein in the president through the power of the purse, through oversight, or through impeachment. They're all there. And the ultimate culprit in enabling the executive branch to grow to such a despotic degree is Congress, because it has not even attempted to assert its prerogatives against executive abuses.
I know some of it is partisan politics. Is it the fact that Congress is totally out of touch with the American people, totally out of touch with rule of law?
I think the answer is yes, because the members no longer conceive of their oath to be to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States, which is required in Article 6. They think that their oath is to defend their party and their own petty political ambitions. And I think that in part the congressional conception, certainly post 9/11, is the less responsibility we have, the better. We'll blame everything on the president and the vice president. We will get reelected even if we have been reduced to ink blots. We'll still get our earmarks and we'll get to get on TV from time to time. But the members feel that that absence, that shirking of responsibility in some sense, shields them from criticism because they haven't decided anything important.
It's not only Congress, it's not only Bush, it's the American people, and you've talked about that. The American people don't even know what's in the Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights only, I keep emphasizing to people, it's only 462 words. When young people graduate from high school in this country, they've done polls and asked them, what's in the First Amendment? Most of them can't even tell you that the freedom of religion is in the First Amendment. They struggle to tell you whether it's the freedom of press in the First Amendment. One poll showed that many Americans, older Americans, thought the right to drive a car was in the First Amendment. And think about that for a moment. Madison rode horses And they let me talk. So it goes deeper than that. It goes to our educational systems. It goes to everything that we supposedly hold important. But at the bottom, the Constitution starts with those three beautiful words, we the people. Isn't it we the people? We have not held our government accountable, and now it's out of control.
Yes. It was Jefferson who explained that a people who hope to be free and ignorant hope what never was and never will be. And President Washington underscored, in fact, his first State of the Union message, the importance of an educated, intelligent citizenry in order to distinguish between licentiousness and prudence, moderation and abuses in the exercise of government power, and to hold government accountable accordingly. That kind of education, philosophical understanding of what America was about, is totally absent today. An American would understand more about how you get to be voted an American Idol than how a law gets enacted or what the history of abuses are during wartime of military commissions or the history of abuses of secrecy. And when you're at that level of ignorance, it's very difficult to maintain a democratic dispensation. People will care more about bread and circuses, about video games, than holding a president accountable for high crimes and misdemeanors.
But they do care more about bread and circuses. The same polls show that Americans can tell you every member of the Simpson family, cartoon Simpson family. They can tell you all three names of the Three Stooges, even their replacements. They can't tell you two people on the Supreme Court, two names on the Supreme Court. Most couldn't name the three branches of government. So they do care more about bread and circuses. That being the case, what in the world are we going to do? Where's the answer to this?
Well, it means that individual leaders in the community have to try to change that mentality. It means we've got to make every dinner table, every breakfast table, a classroom in some sense of civic responsibility. The parents have to do it. The leaders in the community have to shame others to say, why did we have people die at Cemetery Ridge and Valley Forge and Omaha Beach for this? They sacrificed that last full measure of devotion to give us freedom, and we're squandering it. You can say, well, how can that be done? Well, we don't know in the sense of having a roadmap getting from destination A to B. Human nature is too complex. We just know we have to try. And even if it fails in the short run, we achieve immortality, because even 50 or 100 years from now, we know the human breast craves so much, thrills so much by freedom and the ability to be involved in self-government that they will be inspired even if the current generation is not.
But don't people have to be taught freedom? Isn't that the failing of the public education system?
Of course it is, but you have to ask who runs the public education system. It's us. And say that's why it's difficult to say, well, let's just put in a new curriculum and put civics #1. It's not going to teach itself. The teachers have to understand.
We don't teach civics in law school.
Well, they don't teach civics in law. They don't read Federalist Papers in law school. They don't read the Constitutional Convention in law school. They don't read the history of the abuses of the British Parliament and the King George III in law school. They don't know why the Founding Fathers decided that they wanted to revoke.
They don't know history. They don't even know their own history.
Yeah. You're exactly right.
History is biography.
Yeah, history is biography. That's exactly right. And these people who will not equip themselves with that knowledge really are denuding themselves of the ability to involve in self-government. That's Madison said. Knowledge will forever govern ignorance, and that people who mean to be their own governors must arm themselves with the power that knowledge gives. If you don't arm yourselves with that power that knowledge gives, you're going to be taken over by some tyrant, some dictator, anybody who craves power. And gosh knows there are enough of those people, whether in Washington or Beijing or Moscow or otherwise, to occupy the premises.